Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. Today we conclude chapter 20, and we are now on the last paragraph.
We'll read the last paragraph and then briefly again discuss what he is saying about death, desire and incapacity. First we read the whole para. If the individualized force were the energy of a mind free from ignorance, no such limitation, no such necessity of desire would intervene. For a mind not separated from supermind, a mind of divine knowledge would know the intention, scope and inevitable result of its every act and would not crave or struggle, but put forth an assured force self-limited to the immediate object in view. It would, even in stretching beyond the present, even in undertaking movements not intended to succeed immediately, yet not be subject to desire or limitation. For the failures also of the divine are acts of his omniscient omnipotence, which knows the right time and circumstance for the incipience, the vicissitudes, the immediate and the final results of all its cosmic undertakings. The mind of knowledge, being in unison with the divine supermind, would participate in this science and this all-determining power. But as we have seen, individualized life force here is an energy of individualizing an ignorant mind. Mind that has fallen from the knowledge of its own supermind. Therefore, incapacity is necessary to its relations in life and inevitable in the nature of things. For the practical omnipotence of an ignorant force, even in a limited sphere, is unthinkable, since in that sphere such a force would set itself against the working of the divine and omniscient omnipotence and unfix the fixed purpose of things, an impossible cosmic situation. The struggle of limited forces increasing their capacity by that struggle under the driving impetus of instinctive or conscious desire is therefore the first law of life. As with desire, so with this strife. It must rise into a mutually helpful trial of strength, a conscious wrestling of brother forces in which the victor and vanquished, or rather that which influences by action from above and that which influences by retort of action from below, must equally gain and increase. And this again has eventually to become the happy shock of divine interchange, the strenuous clasp of love replacing the convulsive clasp of strife. Still, strife is a necessary and salutary beginning. Death, desire and strife are the trinity of divided living, the triple mask of the divine life principle in its first essay of cosmic self-affirmation.
So beautiful. So beautiful.
Lovely. So
and very clear.
Yeah, it's also clear. And if we discuss it, it will become even more. We'll give examples and see what he's meaning by that. Okay, so. And he's talking of failure. Failure is a very interesting concept in him. Okay. If the individualized force were the energy of a mind free from ignorance, no such limitation, no such necessity of desire would intervene. Because the mind would know everything and it would give the energy that is doing the work will do it perfectly and there will be no want. Only the mind of ignorance is causing the problem because it doesn't know. So, he is also explaining, for a mind not separated from supermind, a mind of divine knowledge, would know the intention, scope, and inevitable result of its every act, and would not crave or struggle, but put forth an assured force self-limited to the immediate object in view. Note interestingly, self-limited, the assured force is limiting its own force to the object in view. The work to be done, it adjusts itself to that. The force is neither too little, failure, not too much, destruction. So, very important these words. Self-limited is limiting its own. The force is limiting itself to the work on hand.
To the immediate object in view.
Yes, what is the object in view? How much force should I put? Then it applies that. Yesterday, Lua, you were not there, so we were discussing. I gave the example of that nail in the wall. If I use too much force, I break the wall. If I use too little force, I don't succeed. So I have to use a force. I don't know how much to use because I'm ignorant. But the divine knows exactly how much force to use without destruction or without failures. That's what he's saying. The immediate object in view. It would, even in stretching beyond the present, even in undertaking movements not intended to succeed immediately, yet not be subject to desire or limitation. This is very interesting. He is explaining again in the next sentence. For the failures also of the divine are acts of its omniscient omnipotence, which knows the right time and circumstance for the incipience, vicissitudes, the immediate and the final results of all its cosmic undertakings. So sometimes the divine purposely fails. What is the meaning of that? That's a very interesting thing. Okay. Why are they failures? A failure is nothing but a step towards the goal. See, if so many countries are shooting rockets into the sky. The first time they do, they fail. Why? Because they don't have the full knowledge. So when they do, they make a mistake and they learn from the mistake. So the failure is a step on the way. That's what Swami is saying.
Beautiful line in Savitri. His failure is not failure,
yes,
whom God leads.
Yes. So it's not a failure, it's a step on the way. The failure is a way to get further knowledge. If the first failure is not there, you will never know what to do next. So a failure. In fact, in synthesis, he says, error is the handmaiden of truth.
Yeah.
They are always together. Unless there is error, how will you learn? So that's what it's meaning. It's interesting if you think about it. Just think of Sri Aurobido's so-called failure in double quotes in the ICS exam. If he had passed it, he would have been a servant under the British.
Yeah.
So just it was intended failure. Also there's another thing. The idea of flying in the air with heavier than air machines was there even at the time of Leonardo da Vinci. They didn't succeed. Why they didn't succeed? Because the world conditions were not ready. You did not have materials, synthetic materials. Probably they didn't have aluminum either at that time. They did not know the laws of flying. So the first Orville brothers, they made an attempt. They understood their mistakes. Now they have more knowledge. Now they can do it. In that context, let us take also Mother's transformation of the body. Okay. The world conditions are not yet ready. But the work that she has done has taken it to such a level that now the next person who comes will know what to do. So it is not a failure. It's up to a point it goes and it is one step on the way. That's what Surendra is very clear. That's what he's saying also here. Nothing is a failure for the divine. It's an intended step towards the intended success.
And this sentence I like so much.
Yeah.
If you take it would and then take out the phrase,
Yeah.
yet not be subject to desire or limitation.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. So, it would, even in stretching beyond the present, even in undertaking movements not intended to succeed, yet not be subject to desire or limitation. Because if we fail, we will have a desire for success. But if the divine is failing, I know it's only a step on the way. Not disturbed, no desire, nothing. Okay. Then, For,
There's another line in Savitri.
yeah,
Our failures are his steps along the way.
that's right. That's exactly the same thing. Each one is a step towards the intended goal. For the failures also of the divine are acts of his omniscient omnipotence. There is knowledge as well as force. If knowledge is not there, omnipotence will be. That's what he's going to discuss now. What happens? Okay? For the failures also of the divine are acts of his omniscient omnipotence, which knows the right time and circumstance for the incipience, the vicissitudes, the immediate and the final results of all the cosmic undertakings. We have been talking about steps. He is giving you the steps. Incipience. Incipience means the starting, the initial movements. Second, the vicissitudes, the failures, ups and downs. The vicissitudes are the ups and downs. Then again, the immediate result and the final result. He's so precise. So 4 steps he is telling you. First, the starting point. Then the trials and errors, the ups and downs and the vicissitudes. Then the immediate result, partial success. And finally, the final result, full success. See how accurate his words are. This is the beauty of Srivastava. He uses in Savitri also repeatedly 4 adjectives.
Yes.
Each one, sometimes the line is only 4 adjectives. So, clear, na? So he's saying, he knows the right time and circumstance for all these things. The starting point, the ups and downs, the trials, the immediate success and the final result of all its cosmic undertakings. Whatever he is doing in the world, he is doing it that way. That's the evolution. Slowly. Failure, success. Failure, success. Failure, success. The mind of knowledge, being in unison with the divine supermind, would participate in this science and this all-determining power. The word science here used in the sense of knowledge, not physical science. All-determining knowledge. But as we have seen, individualized life force here is an energy of individualizing an ignorant mind. Mind that has fallen from the knowledge of its own supermind. Therefore, incapacity is necessary to its relations in life and inevitable in the nature of things. When you don't know what to do and you try to do, naturally you're going to fail. So that's what he's saying, the incapacity. Therefore, incapacity is necessary to its relations in life and inevitable in the nature of things. For the practical omnipotence of an ignorant force, even in a limited sphere, is unthinkable, since in that sphere, such a force would set itself against the working of the divine and omniscient omnipotence and unfix the fixed purpose of things, an impossible cosmic situation. He has given into quite a complex sentence, but you can think, if there is a force, omnipotent force, without the knowledge of what it is doing, it will create chaos. There has to be a guidance. There should be knowledge which is directing that force to an intended purpose. If only you let loose force without consciousness and without knowledge, it's going to be a total chaos. This idea he repeats also elsewhere. He says, that's why consciousness and force are always together in Satchidananda. Sat Chit Shakti Ananda. If one of this is missing, there is a problem. If only consciousness is there and no force, no manifestation. If only force is there and consciousness is not there, chaos. So there has to be consciousness and force together. The struggle of limited forces, increasing their capacity by that struggle under the driving impetus of instinctive or conscious desire, is therefore the first law of life. Desire is the first law of life. That's why. Because you are ignorant, you have a little bit of force, you try to do, but you don't get. So desire comes, I must succeed. So desire is trying to get the success. That's the first law. Okay? As with desire, so with strife. It must rise into a mutually helpful trial of strength, a conscious wrestling of brother forces in which the victor and vanquished Or rather, that which influences the action from above and that which influences by retort of action from below must equally gain and increase. This is a win-win situation is the word nowadays they use. Okay, let's come to an agreement which will be a win-win situation. Both will benefit. How will both benefit? The lower will benefit because the higher is helping it. But the higher will also benefit because it will be able to come down and manifest itself properly. That's why. Right now, because of the darkness, the manifestation is not perfect. It gets absorbed by the darkness of the lower hemisphere. But if the lower hemisphere is already a little more light, it can enter more easily. So that's why there will be a mutual benefit. This mutual benefit is what he's going to discuss in the next chapter. Okay? And this again has eventually to become the happy shock of divine interchange. Right now, our interchange is mostly not happy. But at that time it will be a happy shock of interchange. In the last chapter of the Life Divine, he discusses how everything will be, you will have different opinion, I will have different opinion, you will have different action, I will have different action. But you are at a divine level, I am at a divine level. There will be complementarity, but not opposition. There will be a harmony, a complementarity. You also will be right, I also will be right, there will be difference. Don't think that the divine manifestation will be a uniform, everybody will have the same nature, everybody will have the same character. No. There will be difference. And he compares that very interesting to an orchestra. It will be the harmony of an orchestra. 100 different instruments, all playing different things and even sometimes different notes also and different rhythms also perhaps, but total harmony. That's what the divine life will be. So, and this again has eventually to become the happy shock of divine interchange. The strenuous clasp of love replacing the convulsive clasp of strife. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Our human love is a convulsive strife. We are all around fighting with each other. No human love is absolute harmony. Always some sort of problem is there. But there it will be, what is the word he's using? Beautiful.
Strenuous clasp.
Yeah, strenuous clasp will become strenuous clasp of love, replacing the convulsive clasp of strife. Still, strife is a necessary and salutary beginning. Death, desire, strife are the trinity of divided living, the triple mask of the divine life principle in its first essay of cosmic self-affirmation. The first essay he is using in the French sense of the word essay, trial.
Trial, yes.
In sense of
attempt,
trial.
yes.
The attempt.
Yes.
So, fantastic end to a difficult chapter. Okay? So.
Well, now we begin chapter 21.
Yeah.
The Ascent of Life.
So, in this, we will read a few paras, but essentially, I'll tell you what he is saying and then we start. It's a difficult chapter. The words are difficult. The concepts are not that difficult once it is laid out. So, I forgot to bring that chart which we have made, how each thing goes through 4 phases. The first phase is matter. The second phase is life. The third phase is mind. And the fourth he has gone to the extreme, the supermind. So, these are the 4 phases and take any one thing. Say force. What is its nature in matter? What is its nature in life? What is its nature in mind? What is its nature in the supermind? This is how it goes on in everything. Force, knowledge, all these things, how it changes from these 4 levels. So on this vertical side, we have the things that are changing, and on this side, you see how one thing is changing into another. So that's quite a complicated thing because you'll read, when we read, we will see. But we'll make it easy by, if I give you that chart, as you said, we'll see what to do. I was proposing to give that, I forgot to bring it actually. We made a chart after a lot of effort. So these things are going through 4 phases and how the ascent of life he is talking about. But you can also talk of the ascent of matter. You can also talk of the ascent of mind. You can talk of all these. They are all ascending one by one. Because essentially they are the same. He has told you that earlier. Matter, life, mind and supermind are all essentially the same. Only different forms. Like ice, water, water vapor. Same thing but taking different forms. So, we start reading. The Ascent of Life. Let the path of the word lead to the Godheads, towards the waters, by the working of the mind. O flame, thou goest to the ocean of heaven, towards the gods. Thou makest to meet together the Godheads of the plains, the waters that are in the realm of light above the sun, and the waters that abide below. So, already you can see there is a hint of what he is going to say. The waters that are in the realm of light above the sun and the waters that abide below. So the same thing, the waters here slowly are rising and going up to that level. So the ascent is already implied here. The Lord of Delight conquers the third status. He maintains and governs according to the soul of universality. According to the soul of universality. The word according is verb here. The Lord of Delight conquers the third status. He maintains and governs. No. It's according is not. It's not a verb. Governs according to the soul of universality. Like a hawk, a kite, he settles on the vessel and uplifts it. A finder of the light, he manifests the fourth status and cleaves to the ocean, that is the billowing of those waters. The fourth status we'll discuss after we finish this. Thrice Vishnu paced and set his step uplifted out of the primal dust. 3 steps he has paced, the guardian, the invisible, and from beyond he upholds their laws. Scan the workings of Vishnu and see whence he has manifested their laws. That is his highest space, which is seen ever by the seers, like an eye extended in heaven. That the illumined, the awakened, kindle into a blaze, even Vishnu's step supreme. So, these 3 steps of Vishnu, there is a story, but what he is describing is earth, the matter, life and mind. These are the 3 steps. The story goes like this, that there was an Asura and he was tormenting they are all symbolic stories. They were tormenting the gods. So the gods don't know what to do. They go to Vishnu and say, please help us. This Asura has to be set right. So, but this Asura had a quality. He would, so much of ego, he would grant anything to anybody. Anybody who came to him, he would grant their wish. That's a sign of the ego again. So Vishnu says, okay, I'll help you. So he becomes the Vaman avatar. He becomes a small creature. And then he goes to this Asura and says, I don't want anything from you. I only want, when I die, give me a small piece of land, which is the length of my body. 3 feet you give me, and that I'll put my body into that. That's all I ask you. I ask you for a piece of ground which is only 3 feet. The Asura says, done. You get it. Now Vishnu assumes his real form. From his Vaman avatar, he becomes vast. And he says, 3 feet, he said 3 steps, he had said. I want 3 steps.
3 steps, yes.
Yeah, not the 3 feet. So then he becomes a vast, infinite, his real form.
Covers the world.
Matter, life, mind. Now he governs the whole thing. It is his property. This is the story. But this is what is symbolic story saying. So that's why he is using this. That which is in matter slowly evolves into life and slowly evolves into mind. And finally the 4th status, the supermind.
I'd like to ask you to comment on the waters that are above the sun.
Yeah. The waters, because in the Vedic image, all these 7 planes of consciousness are waters. They are called rivers. So, If you go to the actual thing, it's a substance. And the substance is one single vast extension of subtlety. So you can so talk about it as an ocean, or they talk about it as a river. So the waters is referring to the substance of that plane. That's what so we shouldn't think of it as a water, but it's talking of the substance of that plane. And the substance of the plane below is matter, and there it is subtle ether. So the connection has to come. That's what he's saying. Okay? Then he's talking of the fourth status. That is also very clear. In our Indian philosophy, we have 4 states. You have the gross world, you have the subtle world, you have the causal world, that which is cause of all these worlds. And above that is the 4th unmanifested world. So you have the Sthula, Sukshma, Karana and Turiya, the 4th. You can talk of them as gross world, subtle world, causal world and the unmanifest. So these are it encompasses the whole range, right from the top to the bottom. You start reading the chapter. We have seen that as the divided mortal mind, parent of limitation and ignorance and the dualities, is only a dark figure of the supermind, of the self-luminous divine consciousness in its first dealings with the apparent negation of itself from which our cosmos commences, so also life as it emerges in our material universe, an energy of the dividing mind, subconscious, submerged, imprisoned in matter, life as the parent of death, hunger and incapacity, is only a dark figure of the divine superconscious force, whose highest terms are immortality, satisfied delight and omnipotence. This relation fixes the nature of that great cosmic processes of which we are a part. It determines the first, the middle and the ultimate terms of our evolution. The first terms of life are division, a force-driven subconscious will, apparent not as will but as dumb urge of physical energy, and the impotence of an inert subjection to the mechanical forces that govern the interchange between the form and its environment. This inconscience and this blind but potent action of energy are the type of the material universe as the physical scientist sees it, and this, his view of things, extends and turns into the whole of basic existence. It is the consciousness of matter and the accomplished type of material living. But there comes a new equipoise. There intervenes a new set of terms which increase in proportion as life delivers itself out of this form and begins to evolve towards conscious mind. For the middle terms of life are death and mutual devouring, hunger and conscious desire, the sense of a limited room and capacity, and the struggle to increase, to expand, to conquer and to possess. These 3 terms are the basis of that status of evolution which the Darwinian theory first made plain to human knowledge. For the phenomenon of death involves in itself a struggle to survive, since death is only the negative term in which life hides from itself and tempts its own positive being to seek for immortality. The phenomenon of hunger and desire involves a struggle towards a status of satisfaction and security, since desire is only the stimulus by which life tempts its own positive being to rise out of the negation of unfulfilled hunger towards the full possession of the delight of existence. The phenomenon of limited capacity involves a struggle towards expansion, mastery and possession, the possession of the self and the conquest of the environment. Since limitation and defect are only the negation by which life tempts its own positive being to seek for the perfection of which it is eternally capable. The struggle for life is not only a struggle to survive, it is also a struggle for possession and perfection. Since only by taking hold of the environment, whether more or less, whether by self-adaptation to it or by adapting it to oneself, either by accepting and conciliating it or by conquering and changing it, can survival be secured. And equally it is true that only a greater and greater perfection can assure a continuous permanence, a lasting survival. It is this truth of Darwinism sought to express in the formula of the survival of the fittest. It is this truth of Darwinism, this truth that Darwinism sought to express in the formula of the survival of the fittest. So you can see it's already quite complex what he's saying. But when he's talking of the terms, he's talking life's first term is matter. Life's second term is life itself. Life's third term is mind. And life's fourth term is supermind. So these are the terms that he's talking about. And each thing he's taking and seeing how it will evolve. Okay, so we'll read today. But if you want, we'll go back to, you'll see how it is pretty complex. This is the whole thing is one para, per and a half page, one para. Anyway, we'll go sentence by sentence, but next time it will be easier because we'll bring that chart and something visual, you'll immediately understand. Otherwise, it is spread over 20 pages, it's difficult to. When you come to the 15th page, you've already forgotten what you said in the first page. So, when we see it in a shortened form, it's easier to understand. So, first he is establishing the connection between mind and supermind, life and conscious force. That much he is doing. We have seen that as the divided mortal mind, our human mind, parent of limitation and ignorance, and the dualities. So, its function is to limit, its function is to create ignorance and the dualities. The dualities also is very important. When it is creating infinitely, it creates infinitely. So, it creates also opposites. So, in the physical world, everything that you see, there is an opposite to it. Equally valid. That's the whole point, the duality. If there is hot, there is cold. If there is truth, there is falsehood. Both are real, both are existing. If there is generosity, there is miserliness. So everything, these are the dualities. Nietzsche has a very interesting, book, Beyond Good and Evil. So if there is good, there is also evil. They are of the same vibrational quality. We feel that good is good and evil is bad. No, spiritually that's not true. It is true only at our level. But when you go to the self, you see that vibrationally they are the same. You will see Mother's text also, she goes on saying the same thing again and again. There is no difference between the two. Vibrationally. Okay, essentially the same.
He has an MCAP for mind.
Yes. So, because it is the overmind that starts the division, therefore.
Divided mortal mind.
Yeah. But finally, when it comes down, it's our mortal mind. The overmind is not mortal, but when it comes down to at our level, it is a mortal mind. Not only mortal, but divided. That which is already divided. So, parent or limitation, ignorance and the duality is only a dark figure of the supermind. This is very clear. Of the self-luminous divine consciousness in its first dealings with the apparent negation of itself. Conscious supermind is creating mind, but the two are apparently opposites. Like spirit and matter also are apparently opposites. One is light, one is darkness. One is single, one is multiplicity. One is formless, one is form. So everything is opposite. Seemingly opposite, essentially the same. in its first apparent negation of itself, from which our cosmos commences. So, when is the cosmos commencing? The inconscient. So, it's the apparent negation of itself from which our cosmos is commencing. Cosmos is not commencing from there. Spiritually, it is commencing from there. Physically, from the bottom, it is commencing from the inconscient. Matter is producing the cosmos. An energy of the dividing mind, subconscious, submerged, imprisoned in matter. That mind is subconscious, it has lost its consciousness and submerged itself and imprisoned itself in matter. Now he comes to life. Life as the parent of death, hunger and incapacity is only a dark figure of the divine superconscious force, Chit Shakti, whose highest terms are immortality, satisfied delight and omnipotence. So, the opposites of death, hunger and incapacity. So you can see at the highest level, that which is immortality becomes here death. That which is satisfied delight.
Interesting word.
Yeah.
Satisfied delight.
Satisfied delight is here becoming
Hunger.
I've lost the hunger, that's right. And omnipotence, incapacity. That's why the opposite. Okay? So these three terms he will take and see how they evolve throughout the 4 stages. Okay? So remember these 3 things: immortality, satisfied delight and omnipotence. This relation fixes the nature of that great cosmic processes of which we are a part. It determines the first, the middle and the ultimate terms of our evolution. So the first is the inconscient, the middle is the subtle world and the ultimate terms is the supermind.
Could you tell me the difference in process and processus?
I think sometimes he lapses into Latin. I don't think there's much of a difference.
I don't either.
He sometimes goes into Latin. In fact, in one place he used a word which Amal could not understand. And so he says, "Sir, what is this word?" And Swamdar replies, "I dare say I Latinized." I remember that sentence, letter to him. "I dare say I Latinized." Here also he is Latinizing.
Yeah, I think so.
Cosmic processes of which we are a part. It determines the first, the middle and the ultimate terms of our evolution. And now, the first terms of life. Now, according to what we are understanding, he is saying the first terms of life. What is it? The first term of life is what? Matter. That's why it's a very strange way of putting it. That's why what he's saying, you could apply also the first terms of mind. Will also be the same. Okay? You can also say the first terms of matter also will be the same. It will apply to all. The first terms of life are division, force-driven subconscious will, apparent not as will, but as dumb urge of physical energy, and the impotence of an inert subjection to the mechanical forces that govern the interchange between the form and its environment. So these are the characteristics of life in matter. Okay? When I show the chart.
In the first stage.
Yes, that's right. But it is life as matter exhibits these qualities. And what are those qualities? Exactly this. Division is the first. Division is a fundamental characteristic of matter. Infinite atoms. Divisibility is extreme at that level. Then second is force-driven subconscious will. We know, science knows that matter is energy. So, force-driven subconscious will. There is a will, but it is subconscious. It doesn't know exactly what it wants, but it wants to come out. Nuclear energy is an aspect of that. We know how to extract nuclear energy from matter. There is force-driven subconscious will. Apparent not as will, but a dumb urge of physical energy. It's a dumb urge of physical energy. It can't even express itself. But the moment it comes out in plants, already it has expressed itself to a certain extent. But in matter, it is a dumb urge. and the and the impotence of an inert subjection to the mechanical forces that govern the interchange between the form and its environment. So, at the level of matter, consciousness and force are there. Force is dominating in matter, consciousness is dominated by force. Purusha is sleeping. Purusha is not allowed to wake up. Prakriti is forcing itself on Purusha and making it sleep. That's why it is dumb energy. At the higher level, as you go up into the self, Purusha wakes up and does not allow Prakriti to act. So it's exactly the opposite. So as you keep coming higher and higher, Purusha starts waking up, starts controlling Prakriti, and at the highest level, in the middle, when you are in the self, Prakriti becomes inert, it does not move at all. That's why there is no movement at all in the self, and Purusha is fully conscious.
But until that moment, in Savitri, for example, he gives his breast for her dance.
That's right. That's a general principle. Yeah, he allows himself to be dominated by her.
Yes.
He gives himself and says, okay, I am willing to be your prisoner. That's the thing. But at the highest level, these two, which seem to be always at loggerheads with each other, Purusha and Prakriti, at the highest level they become one. Chit Shakti becomes one. And that's at the supramental level, or if you want in our Indian philosophy, they call it the Purushottama. The Purushottama consciousness is one that is, all the opposites are merged there in that highest consciousness. Personality, impersonality, form, formlessness, everything, consciousness, force, they all become one.
Merge there and become one.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right. So, note these things. The first terms of life, that is in matter, the characteristics of matter are division, force-driven subconscious will, apparent not as will, but as dumb urge of physical energy, and the impotence of an inert subjection to the mechanical forces that govern the interchange between the form and its environment. Consciousness is there in matter, but it is completely overpowered by the physical energy, mechanical forces. Okay? This inconscience and this blind but potent action of energy, note that, the inconscience and the blind but potent action of energy are the type of the material universe as the physical scientist sees it, and this, his view of things, extends and turns into the whole of basic existence. It is the consciousness of matter and the accomplished type of material living. This scientist sees matter and thinks that the law that operates there is operating everywhere. So he extends his idea to life and mind. In fact, science says life and mind are nothing but chemical reactions of matter. So that's what Swami is saying. He makes a mistake and thinks that everything is matter in different forms. Actually, it's a different principle that comes in that he is not aware of. Now science is waking up to that.
Mm-hmm.
Science has now understood that there can be consciousness without matter.
They're saying that there is a consciousness.
Yes, an independent consciousness.
Yes.
Earlier they used to think that wherever there is life only there is consciousness. Even now they are thinking like that. But now slowly, particularly that NDE, near-death experience, those who go out of their body, the body is not determining them, but they are fully conscious, they come back and tell their experiences.
And there are simply too many examples to disregard.
Yes, exactly. Too many examples. In fact, Raymond Moody has 200 cases. He has this
life after life.
Yes, life after life, life after death. He has written many books. And he is not the only one. There are others also who have done that. So, although you can't prove it, too many cases are there to ignore. That's the whole point. Now, so he has talked the first terms of life is matter, and there he has given these three things. There is the division, force-driven subconscious will, and finally there is the dumb urge of physical energy. In that chart we have put down these things and see how these slowly change over the different states. Okay. Now, but there comes a new equipoise. That's life. From matter comes life. That's a new equipoise. There intervenes a new set of terms which increase in proportion as life delivers out of this form and begins to evolve towards conscious mind. So, this sentence, let's look carefully and see what he's saying. But there comes a new equipoise. He has talked of matter. The first term of life is matter. Now the new equipoise is life itself. Okay? And that life is, there intervenes a new set of terms which increase in proportion as life delivers out of itself, out of this form. Form is matter. And increase in proportion as life delivers out of itself this form and begins to evolve towards conscious mind. Conscious mind will be the third term. So now, for the middle terms is life itself. So in life, middle terms of life are death, mutual devouring, hunger and conscious desire. These are the things you will see how they go on changing. Okay? First death, then mutual devouring, hunger and conscious desire. The sense of a limited room and capacity and the struggle to increase, to expand, to conquer and to possess. These are the characteristics of life. It wants to increase always. It wants to expand, to conquer and to possess. These three terms are the basis of that status of evolution which the Darwinian theory first made plain to human knowledge. Matter, life and mind. So matter, from matter life has come out, in the first as plants, then as animals and then man. For the phenomenon of death involves in itself a struggle to survive, since death is only the negative term in which life hides from itself and tempts its own positive being to seek for immortality. This we discussed, that life in a limited form wants to experience the unlimited experience. It wants to enjoy infinitely, but life can't do that, so life changes form. So death is a process of life. He has explained that earlier in the previous chapter. Death is a chance given to life to start a new experience. That's what he's saying. In one life, you can only experience a certain limited amount of experience. So next life, you change the circumstances, take you somewhere else, you get new experiences. So a series of new experiences, the soul grows in consciousness. So this is interesting. These three terms are the basis of, for the phenomenon of death involves in itself a struggle to survive. Since death is only the negative term in which life hides from itself and tempts its own positive being to seek for immortality. The positive being of life is wanting to live and wanting to enjoy. That's a positive aspect of life. Okay, so. And tempts its own positive being to seek for immortality. Now he comes to hunger. First he has dealt with death. Now he is dealing with hunger. The phenomenon of hunger and desire involves a struggle towards a status of satisfaction and security, since desire is only the stimulus by which life tempts its own positive being to rise out of the negation of unfulfilled hunger towards the full possession of the delight of existence. So, desire is wanting to get the full satisfaction, but unable to do that. In mind, the satisfaction is little more, in supermind it is full. So this is the progress that he will chart. For death, he will chart it for hunger, and he will chart it also for incapacity. That's it. So
this being positive being. Positive being.
That's right. They are all going towards the positivity. They seem to be the opposite. He has told you right in the beginning, immortality becomes death, force becomes incapacity, and the other one, there are three things he has spoken.
Omnipotence, incapacity, satisfied delight, hunger.
Yeah.
Mortality then.
That's
mortality
right. Yeah. So this is what.
Positive is that one which is high.
Yes. From there, when it comes down, it becomes the apparent opposite. Actually, it is not. This apparent opposite is when it comes through each medium, there's a little distortion, there's a little distortion, there's a little distortion. Like you take a stick and put in water, you will feel as though it is bent. Actually, it is not bent. So this is that apparent distortion that is taking place through different layers of substance. Yeah. The phenomenon, now he is coming to, so he has dealt with death and hunger, now he comes to capacity. The phenomenon of limited capacity involves a struggle towards expansion, mastery, possession. The possession of the self and the conquest of the environment. Since limitation and defect are only the negation by which life tempts its own positive being to seek for the perfection of which it is eternally capable. The struggle for life is not only a struggle to survive, it's also a struggle for possession and perfection. Since only by taking hold of the environment, whether more or less, whether by self-adaptation to it or by adapting it to oneself, either by accepting and conciliating it or by conquering and changing it, can survival be secured. And equally is it true that only a greater and greater perfection can assure a continuous permanence and lasting survival. It is this truth that Darwinism sought to express in the formula of the survival of the fittest. So, Darwin has only grasped one aspect of reality, not fully. That's what he's saying. I propose that even if we have 10 minutes or so left,
Only 7 minutes, we're fine.
so we'll stop now today.
Agree.
Because next time,
You bring that form.
yeah, and then it will become very clear.
Wonderful.
How all he has spoken about terms, and he's speaking also of three characteristics. He has taken three things and he is discussing these three things in the four terms. So it's a big chart. You have death, hunger, and incapacity. How these things change over the four periods. Yeah, over matter, life, mind, and supermind.
Did you work it out yourself? or-
Yes.
Yes.
With great difficulty. That's why I want to make it easy for you.
Very good.
It took a long time to understand what he's saying. He talks of status and terms. So what is meant by term? What is meant by status?
Namaste.